Okay. All right. So the first thing we want to talk about, and this is kind of a review, we kind of reviewed a little bit last week too, but let's talk about changing the image size of our images so that they are appropriate for our first assignment. In fact, maybe we should begin by just looking at that first assignment. So let's see. Excuse me, if I go to, I think this is my previous class. So let me just go to our class. So here's our class. And then usually when you just go on the home page, it'll have all of my modules. And so we're week 2. It's week 2, but the assignment 1 is actually in the week 1 module. So just be aware of that. And you can go in here. And then this has all the stuff for that assignment. We have, here's the rubric. Now there's a handout that you're going to get. You can print it out. It's called this. It's assignment 1 fa.pdf. And so it will have instructions. It'll have its own rubric, but you can follow this rubric to kind of make sure you get everything. But I'm grading off of this rubric, this Canvas rubric, and it should be, it's nearly identical, but the Canvas one might be a little bit more accurate or specific. So I recommend just looking at this. You can look at this as a reference, but then look at this as well, just to make sure you get everything. And I'll try to review this later in the class so that we'll kind of go over it. Okay, make sure you do this, 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 and this. But this is how I grade it. And then there's not too many things that I'm grading. So as long as you just do everything on that rubric, you'll get a great grade, right? Now, there's the assignment. So that's like this handout. Then I have the student files, which are all the images. So if you haven't downloaded this yet, you might try to just download this right now while I'm talking. And it's a zip file. So when you download that zip file, if you're on a PC, I recommend using, I'm using Firefox, but if you have software that works like something else, then that's fine. But I recommend Firefox. It always works for me. If you're on a Mac, you're probably using like Safari. Although maybe you can get Firefox. I love Firefox. It works pretty good. But I know that it works for sure on Firefox. I guess that's my point. When you download it, it'll be something like this. It'll be like, I want this zip file. And then it's like, then you want to save it. So you'll get an option to save it and you'll hit OK. And then it will save it in the upper, it's the upper right. And I don't remember if Macs work the same, but they work in a very similar way. Like it'll save it to your documents, and then you can. And I think Macs, I don't remember exactly because I don't use them that often, but it probably does exactly the same thing. And so what happens is, here's my downloads. So you have to find your downloads, right? And then this is the upper right of Firefox, and then it's a zipped file, has a little zipper. And to open it, you just click on it, and then Windows will typically just automatically unzip it and put it in your documents. I'm not gonna do it because I already done it, but it will be like downloads, and then it'll be in here in your downloads, and then you can just open it up, and it should work. Give it a try. If you have troubles, I might be able to help you. If you're on a Mac, I may not be able to answer your question right away, but you could ask another Mac user. They might be a little more familiar with it than I am. I just don't have a Mac to look at right now. Anyway, so that's the student files zip. Then there's a handout, and the handout is just, it's just like a basic step-by-step instruction on how to change your image size. And you might just look at the file and just like, oh, okay. Or, you don't have to print it out, but there's 2 versions of it. One is they're the same thing. The handout is twice. One is a PDF, which is like useful everywhere. And then the other one is like a Word file. So if you have Microsoft Word, then use the docs file. If you don't, then you just use a PDF. PDF is more common. And then, we don't need this in-class 01 image. We don't need that because that's if we did the in-class assignment, and we're not going to do the in-class assignment this week. So don't worry about that. Okay, so let's see. We got the files. We got the rubric. Okay, now I'm going to use Bridge. Bridge Adobe Bridge is just a way to look at your images. And so like what you can do is you can download Bridge from the Creative Cloud. It's just a way to organize all of your pictures and look at them. So there's like a big preview and you can look at them. This is useful if you have like hundreds of photographs. If you're like a digital photographer, you just want to see them all. Or if you have a lot of artwork, you just want to kind of look at them one at a time. Anyways, it's not mandatory that you use this, but this is pretty useful because you can find your folder where you downloaded your student files. It's kind of up here. And then you can, oh gosh, I just lost it all. Here it is. And then you can just open them up into Photoshop. So it's kind of convenient. Now, here's what if you use Bridge, here's what I recommend. Have Photoshop already open. So my Photoshop is open, but when I go to Bridge, if I double click on one of my, and these are the student files, by the way, that we're going to use for project one, right? But if I just want to start with this one, I can just double click it and it will automatically open it up in Photoshop that I have open, right? So it's convenient. Now, here's what our project one looks like, right? This is the sample. And so you'll get this sample in that zip folder. And you can just see, it's just basically a layout. It's a nice, it's a composition of a lot of different images. And this could be used for like a mood board, a presentation. It could be used for just like an inspiration, like, so like if you have like a certain clothing line and you want to, basically communicate the feel or the brand of that line, right? So, but anyways, we're going to use these images to create this. And I guess our line is Electric Street Love. That's our brand, right? Or that's our mood, right? Or theme, right? Now, your images might be slightly different, but you kind of want to match this. It doesn't have to match 100%. But like, for instance, we got this person here. He's kind of tilted, so you probably want to tilt him. We got this this denim fabric and this pile fabric. They're probably behind stuff. So you can match this. But if your composition is good and it's similar to this, but you change it a little bit, that's okay. I'm not gonna nitpick you if it's not perfectly matching this. But this is just a good example. And then one more thing. I know you guys are way smarter than this. I just got to say it though. Don't turn this in as your assignment, right? I'll know. Like when you submit your assignment, you'll have the layers and I grade the layers. So like, I can't be tricked. And I know you're smarter than that. This is just an example. You want to kind of match it and you'll have layers and I'll be able to look at each individual picture. It's, this is just a JPEG. It's a flat image. So don't turn this one in. You're going to turn in your Adobe PDF file, right? And we'll talk about that. Okay. So let's see. The first thing I want to do is let's talk about sizing and changing the resolution of our images to match our project. In fact, before I even do that, let's just set up, I'm just going to set it up because my project is going to be, I have one set up, but I'm going to close it. The size of our project is going to be 8.5 by 11 landscape by 300 pixels per inch. So I would create that, and I'll show you this again, but it's easy. Create new. So I'm going to create new. And then I'm just going to find a letter size page. It should be kind of like one of these templates. So letter size. I'm going to go 8.5 by 11, but I want landscape. Landscape is the wide page. Portrait is the tall page. So portrait, landscape, right? And then you want to make sure the resolution is 300 pixels per inch. Usually by default, the letter size template is 300 pixels per inch. And just to let you know, you always want to work in 300 pixels per inch. That is the standard professional like image resolution for print that is. So you don't want to, when you work, you don't want to go lower than 300 pixels per inch. Now, sometimes they make you go higher, which is a lot. It takes up a ton of memory, but it's rare. So like if you work for a company, let's say you work for a magazine and they don't tell you like, oh, we work at 600 pixels per inch. If they don't say that, then you can just assume that their resolution is 300 pixels per inch. It's very common. Now, we're going to work in 300 pixels per inch, but we're going to, at the end, you're going to save a copy at a lower resolution so that it is easier to submit to Canvas. But you don't want to work in that lower resolution. That's just a copy to submit. And we'll talk more about that later. Just remember, it's always 300 pixels per inch unless your employer says it needs to be higher. And that's rare, okay? And that's for print typically. Like if you're working strictly for digital, it'll be a different resolution. So, but let's not worry about that for today. Okay, so I'm gonna create, that was a long explanation. So here's my file. It's empty and it is 300 pixels per inch. This is my host document. This is where I'm gonna be collecting and putting all my images. Normally I would save it. I'm just gonna leave it untitled at the moment, but normally I would make you name it right away. Okay, so let's open up some images. I'm gonna go to, and you guys can just watch this. I'm just gonna show you. I'm gonna open up this one, and this one. And we'll just experiment with these to learn the basic. Now, one nice thing about Bridge is you can hold Control or Shift and select a lot of images and then open them all at once. So like if you wanted to open up 10 images at once, you could, and it'll put them in tabs, but sometimes you get too many. I'm just gonna open up 3. I selected 3, I'm gonna double click on one. It's gonna open up 3 for me. So technically, if you had like 50 photos that you wanted to work on like at the same time, you could open up all 50, but it would be a bear to work with. It would be, because like it'd be a long list, but it's doable, it's possible. Okay. Now we have these images. Let's start with, and they're displayed in this tabs, right? So here's my host document, untitled. And then on these other 3 tabs, these are the images that I opened up. And they just kind of save them, or they're just kind of, they're open in that tab format. Now I'm gonna start with the brick, and I'm following the handout, and later you'll be able to either print this out or just look at it on your Canvas screen. But this is like, that first document in the, the homework. And it has the instructions on the proper size you want your images to be. So I'm gonna follow this paper, and that's just to let you know, that's where I'm getting the sizes. So the first thing I wanna do to change the size of this image so that it matches my host document is this. I'm gonna go to image menu, so image size, right? So that's on the top, it's a menu, image, I go to image size. Then I wanna look at the information, okay? And so the information, and what am I looking for? I'm looking for resolution, so that's not 300 pixels per inch, that's some weird number, it's like 94.4. And then this is weird too, pixels per centimeter. Now, normally, most of your images will be pixels per inch, but the instructor that put this project together, she wanted to like trick you, like throw some curveballs so that you're like paying attention. So this is one of those images, it's pixels per centimeter, and I want pixels per inch. So the first thing I do is I gotta change this to be pixels per inch. So there it is, pixels per inch. Now I can see that the resolution is 240 pixels per inch. And that means for every inch, there's 240 pixels or little dots of color, right? Okay. Now, that's not 300 yet, so I have to change it. Okay. So the first thing I want to do is I want to match the resolution of my project, which is 300. So the first thing I want to do is, and this is pretty much what you're going to do. And this list, if you forget, you can print out this list or look at it. It tells you the order that you're going to do. And sometimes I forget, so I'm going to look at it. Anyways, the first thing is you uncheck resample. I don't want to resample it yet. I just want to change the resolution. Now, when I change the resolution, though, the height and the width are going to, they're going to adapt. They're going to adapt to the new resolution. But the pixels, the pixel dimensions should stay the same. It's just that when I make my resolution 300 pixels per inch, there'll be more pixels per inch so that I'll have less inches, but the overall pixel dimensions will stay the same. And that's kind of confusing. So if that doesn't make sense, don't worry about it. It might make sense later. But for some of you, you'd be like, some of you are smart. And you're like, oh yeah, I totally know what that means. It's like, okay, you're probably smarter than me than when I was 20 or your age. Okay, so anyways, I'm gonna change the resolution. So here it is, 300. So notice that the height and the width changed. It adjusted because I can fit more pixels in here, but the actual pixel dimensions stay the same. Whatever, there it is. Now, according to my handout, this is what, the brick image? The brick image, it needs to be 2 inches tall. So tall is the same as height. It's funny that this person, because this, the person that made this project, they're super technical. And so I'm surprised they just didn't do height and width. They did tall. Okay, tall is the same thing as height. So it says the brick needs to be 2 inches tall. So that's the height. So I'm gonna, so now I need to check resample. And now I can change the height. But when I do this, it is gonna change the pixel size now because it really is gonna get smaller, but don't worry about that. So here it goes, 2 inches height. Notice that when it changed the 2 inches height, it also adjusted the width. Why? Because the height and the width are linked. There's a little chain link here. That means if I change one, it changes the other dimension so that it doesn't distort. So that it basically just doesn't distort. So it adjusts the other one too, and that's good. That's what I want. Now I'm gonna do this a couple times, so if this doesn't make perfect sense, you'll see it again. So now I'm gonna hit OK. So it's 300 resolution, pixels per inch by 2 inches in height. Okay, so I'm gonna hit OK. So there it is, it's smaller. Now, another thing I need to do with this stuff for our homework is I need to make this into a smart object. So a smart object has certain properties, and I'll kind of tell you what they are. But to make this image into a smart object, here's what I do. There's a couple different ways, but the easiest way is you can just right-click on the layer. So if I right-click on the layer, then I get options, and I can do convert to smart object. So I'm going to click on convert to smart object, and it's a smart object. Let me see if that's as big as that gets. That's as big. Okay. It might be hard to see on your screen, but there's a little gray icon. It has a little page and a box. That means it's a smart object. Now, I need to rename the layer. So right now it's layer 0. And in your handout, it says, make sure you name all your layers like no numbered layers. Like a numbered layer is the default name, and you got to change the name. So to change the name, I can just double click on the name, and I could just name it brick. You could, technically you can name it whatever you like, but try to name it the most useful name. Like, I don't care if you named it something different, like wall, I'm fine. But brick is probably more appropriate. If there's not, it just has to be a different, it has to be a new name. Okay, there it is. So that's it. Now let's talk about smart objects. What are the benefits of smart objects? Smart objects will always remember or stay at the resolution that you saved it a smart object as. So like whenever you make an image bigger or smaller, you lose image quality. But if it's a smart object, it will always remember the image quality that you saved it as. Now, while I'm saying that, what can you do with a smart object? You can never make an image bigger. And hopefully you learned this in your other class, your intro to Adobe class. You can never make an image bigger. I mean, you can, but graphic designers will frown on you. They will sneer at you. How dare you make a small image bigger? Because it loses image quality. Now, when you make an image bigger, you'll be like, I can't even tell. It looks fine. It looks the same. But it does. It loses image quality. So normally, you never make an image bigger. But you can make an image smaller. Now, when you make an image smaller, believe it or not, technically, it still loses image quality. But because the image itself is getting smaller, you don't notice the image loss. So it is allowed in the graphic design community. Like it's okay. You can make an image smaller because you can't tell about the image loss. But if you make an image bigger, no way, you can't do that. So just be aware of that. Never make an image bigger. So you're probably wondering, well, what do you do then? What happens if you have an image and it needs to be bigger? Well, here's how you do it. Your source image should be really big, like bigger than you need, because you can't make it bigger. So usually if I have like a background image, I usually try to find an image that's twice as big as I need. So then I can shrink it down, but you can never make it bigger. So the answer is, technically, if you're a professional, you try to get large images, and then you can shrink them down as needed, but not bigger. But don't worry about that for now. Okay, here it is. I got my image the right size. Now I want to move this into my project. How do I move it into my project, my host document? You use the move tool. Let's say I got my move tool, and I can, now you can drag the image itself onto the host tab file, or you can actually drag the layer. I like to drag the layer, but you can also just drag the image, but you're using the move tool. So how do you drag? You hold your left mouse button down and you start moving your mouse. It'll have a fist if you hold your mouse button down. And then I'm going to move it to that tab, the untitled tab. And when you do that, it'll open your host document. Then I can move it in. Now, when I let go, it'll put it in that document. Okay, so normally that's what you do. You let go. If you hold shift before you let go, it will center it. So watch, I'm going to hold shift and I'm going to let go. It's centered. Now, you don't normally need to center it, but it's kind of a good habit to get into. I always hold shift and center it. But even if it wasn't centered, let's say I just let go here and it put it there, I can always move it to the center, right? Okay, let me turn on, let me turn on the chat in case anyone has a question for me. Let's see. Not yet. And then okay, yes, we're good. Okay, so that's it. So that's number one. Let's go to this other, let's go to this image. Okay, so again, I'm going to show you again, just the basics. So again, I want to adjust the image resolution and size to fit my document. So again, I'm going to go image size. So it's under image size. Then first, you want to check to make sure that it's pixels per inch. So this one is. You want to make sure that the height and the width are linked. I think, is that what it says? It says, yeah, it just says make sure height and width are linked. These are normally linked. You don't have to worry about that. And then let's see. Now, I need to, if I have to change the resolution, which I do, you uncheck resample, then you change the resolution. So I want this to be 300. Oh, by the way, let's say you screw up. Let's see, let me screw up. Let's say I did do 3000. Whenever you're working in the image size little panel, if you screw up, you can press Control Z to undo what you just did. So Control Z. Can I do multiple steps? Let me see. Ooh, no, it only goes back and forth. So if you ever mess up, like with a dimension or something, like, oh, I forgot to uncheck that, then just Control Z and it'll send it back. And sadly, that happens to me a lot because I'll miss something or, I'll be distracted. Okay, so 300 pixels per inch, but now I want to change the size of this wall, this concrete. It looks like chocolate chip, or no, it looks like a Oreo ice cream. Anyways, I'm going to click resample. And now I want to change the height or the width. And I'm looking at my handout and it says, this is what, the concrete? Boy, that does not look like concrete, but it is apparently. It needs to be 2 inches tall. Okay, so I go to my height and I'm just going to make that 2. And notice that the width adjusts. So that looks good. So I'm going to hit OK. Now I'm going to, I want it to be a smart object. And you want to do this before you put it into your project. And I'll give you some forbidden knowledge, but let's just do it this way. So before I bring it into my host document, I'm going to make it a smart object. Now, last time I right-clicked, this time I'm just going to go to the option button. So I'm going to go option button. It's just a different way to do it. Option button, convert to smart object. It's a smart object. I could have gone to, there's more than one way to do this stuff. I could have gone to layer, smart object, convert. I could have done this way too. So whatever way you like to do it, you can go layer menu, you can go to layer options, or you can just right click and then it'll be convert to smart object, right? Now, Now I need to rename it. Again, you could rename it this way, rename layer. Is it in here somewhere? Ooh, I can't find it. Maybe, but anyways, you can find it over here. Rename, right? So I could rename that layer this way. But again, I just double click it. Double click. I want to name this concrete. Hopefully I spelled it right. Whenever you're done typing your name, you just hit enter to stop typing. Okay, there it is. Then I'm going to drag this into my project. So using my move tool, I'm going to drag it and I'm going to put it right on that host document tab. Then I'm going to bring it in and I'm just going to let go. If I hold shift, it'll center it, but I'm not. I'm just going to let go. So there it is. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of forbidden knowledge, and I don't want you to do this for your homework, but I want you to be aware of different ways to do this stuff. Because some of you are smart, and I know you are, and you're probably thinking, Dave, how come you shrunk down your image before you made it a smart object? Shouldn't you have left it big, made it a smart object, then shrunk it down? Because once it's a smart object, it'll always remember that big size, just in case you need to make it bigger later. If you're thinking that way, then yes, you are correct. That's the way you probably should do it normally. But I want you to follow the handout because this is practice and they want you to practice it a certain way. But if you're smarter, now, I mean, I'm not saying this is not smart. I'm just saying you might be thinking in a smarter way. I'm going to show you, but just do it the way this says, and I'll show you, but I'm just going to show you once. So let me show you probably a better way to do what I just did. So watch, I'm gonna dump out, okay, I'm gonna close the cookie, the Oreo cookie. That's officially the Oreo cookie layer now. So let's see, I'm gonna open Oreo cookie again. Let me show you the way that I would have normally do it. Someone's asking a question about the graffiti image. We'll talk about that soon. So I'll show you exactly. Like, let's see, if I try doing it same, we'll talk about that. We have to crop that one first. So we'll talk about that soon. So anyways, let's look at, okay, so here it is. Here's my cookie, here's my Oreo. First, I want to match the resolution that I want. So that I will do. So I'm gonna go image size, and I'm gonna change the image size. So let's see, first I'm gonna uncheck resample, right? I'm gonna check to make sure it's pixels per inch, it is. And I'm gonna make this 300. So now this is 10 by 6, right? Oh, okay, it didn't change. Let me double check. And image size. Yeah, okay, so this is good. Oh. Okay, so that's correct. Now, what I'm supposed to do is make this 2 inches like in height. But right now it's like 6.5 or something. It's bigger right now. So technically the better thing, and don't do this for your homework. I'm just giving you the forbidden knowledge, right? It's not forbidden, but don't do it for your homework. I'm gonna make this a smart object first, so it's as big as possible. The whole point of a smart object is to preserve the biggest quality image. So watch, I'm gonna right click on my layer, convert to smart object. There it is. Then I could name it. I'm not going to name this one. Now I'm going to drag this into my project. So watch, I'm going to drag it in. I'm going to just drop it here. So here you can see it's really big, right? And you're like, but that's too big. The assignment said make it 2 inches. True. So what I could probably do is, and this is what I would do professionally. So I have the biggest possible size. I dragged it into my project. Now I can scale it down, but because it's a smart object, I can always make it this size. I can make it big again to this size. Whereas this other concrete image, I can only make it as big as this, and that's pretty small. So I don't have a lot of flexibility with that one. Anyways, so it's a smart object. I'm just going to transform it. So how do I transform? Well, there's a couple different ways on how to transform your image. probably the easiest way to transform your stuff is to use the move tool. So I have my move tool selected. Then in the control panel near the top, there is an option called show transform controls. If I click on show transform controls, it will show me the bounding box. They call this the bounding box in Illustrator. But basically it's a transformation box, right? It's called the bounding box, and it's like Illustrator, so I can just scale it down. Now, here's what I want to do. I want to scale it down to be 2 inches. So I know that this one's 2 inches, so I'll just kind of make it that size. So let's see. Or I could just scale it to the size I want it to be. Well, it's a little smaller, but that's close enough. Whenever you do a transformation, you have to press Enter to confirm it, or there's a little check mark up here. There's a little check mark that will confirm it. So I'm just going to press Enter to confirm it. Now these look the same, but this bottom one has the potential to be bigger. But don't worry about that for this. Don't worry about that for this class. I just want you to think about that for the future. If you were thinking that, then you're correct. But don't do it for this assignment. Just do that in the future. You want your images to be as big as they possibly could be. It's okay to shrink them down as a smart object. You can always make it smaller. You just can't make an image bigger, okay? But because the smart object was originally pretty large, I can make it bigger again. I forget the exact size, but I can make it pretty big. So I have that option. You have flexibility. Okay, enough of that talk. Now let's see. Let's talk about cropping. Somebody asked me about the graffiti image, and we need it to be 8.5 by 11, and we need to crop. There's like a white background around it. So let's see. I'm going to go find it. Let's see. It's going to go here. So here it is. I'm going to open it up, and here it is. Now we need to crop the white because we only want the graffiti. But I recommend. Let me see. What does it say? What does it say to do? It says. See, here it says crop it first, then revise the resolution. Let me tell you this. I'm going to tell you a little different than this handout, and you're like, well, what do? Do I do what Dave says, or do I do what the handout says? If you follow the handout, then I'm not going to, and it's different. Like if I tell you to do something different, but you follow the handout, you're okay. I'm not going to penalize you. Like, for instance, I'm going to tell you to name your project a different name than what the handout says. But let's say you forget what I told you to name it as, and you just follow the handout. It's fine. Just follow the handout and you're okay. But if you remember what I said, then do that. But otherwise, it's okay to follow this to the letter and you'll be okay. I'm not going to penalize you for following the handout. It's just sometimes I give you a different suggestion or I change it a little bit, but it's okay. Now, what I would do is I would change this to be the proper. Now, the handout says crop it first. I'm going to change the resolution first because I want my resolution to be the same. So I'm going to go image size. I want to uncheck resample, so it is, and I'm going to make sure it's pixels per inch. It is, and I'm going to make this 300. Okay. So I'm going to hit OK. Okay. It didn't look like it changed anything. It just adapted the size to the 300 pixels per inch. So it's kind of the same. Now, to crop the extra white, I'm going to use the crop tool. So the crop tool looks like this. Maybe you use this in the intro class. Basically, it's like, it's like a little picture frame that's going to crop. It's going to crop my excess image that I don't want. So again, I'm going to do this. I'm going to like pull this down. And I want to cut away all the white. And you have to use the crop tool for this project. So like I might show you a different way how to do this, but use the crop tool because you're supposed to learn how to use the crop tool. I don't use the crop tool myself. I would just use a mask. Maybe I would crop this. I might crop this one, but a lot of times I don't crop stuff. But that's just me personally. There's more than one way to do it. Once you kind of get it, you try to match it as best you can. to apply it's going to cut away the excess. You want to either A, press enter, or you can click on this little check mark. I'm going to click on the check mark this time. Ooh, look, I still had a little bit of white here. So let's see, I'm going to crop it again. Now this is interesting, watch. It's going to let me draw a marquee. But for some reason, I can't always get the marquee. Here, I'm going to on purpose not use the marquee. But I'm going to move this up. I got to trim a little on the top, just a little. This is hard to do. Whatever, I'm just going to do that. I'm going to press enter. No, that was not good. This is taking me forever. Okay, please work. Enter. Okay, good enough. Okay, so now let's look at the image size. There might be a better way to like perfectly snap it to those edges, but that's good enough for my class. Okay, so now let's look at the image size. Let's go image size. Okay, so now I'm looking at the image size and it's almost 8.5 by 11. You'll notice, well, hopefully you can read those numbers. They might be too small, but it's like 10.98. So it's like, 2/100ths of a difference to 11, right? So now normally I would say never make an image bigger. But for this particular image, this particular circumstance, yes, it is okay to make this slightly bigger. Now, the trick is I got to figure out, I got to get 8.5 by 11 or a little more than 8.5 by 11. So if I change my width to 11, let's find out to see what happens. And I want to check resample before I do this because I want the resolution to stay the same, but I just want the height and the width to change. So let's try if I make this 11. Nope. So if I change that to be 11, the height is still not 8.5. So I'm going to undo that, Control Z. Now I'm going to change the height. So let's see, I'm going to go 8.5. Please be enough. Yeah. Okay, so 8.5, I changed the height and it gave me enough to do 11 and a little extra. It's like 11.019. So that's a little bigger than I need, but you want it to be a little bigger, not smaller. It needs to be a little bigger than 8.5 by 11. And that's pretty good. So I'm going to hit OK. Now, this made it a little bigger. Technically, you're not supposed to do that, but that's kind of it's such a small increment that most people won't notice it, but pure blood graphic designers, they still might turn their nose at that, like, how dare you? But it's okay, a tiny bit. That wasn't half an inch, that wasn't an inch, that was like pixels that I made it a little bigger, just so I can fit for convenience. Sometimes the convenience is a little better, so that's okay. It's okay for me and you, for my class. Now here it is. I want to make it a smart object. So I'm going to right click, make smart object. All of your pictures are going to be smart objects. I'm going to name it. I'm just going to name it wall because I don't know how to spell graffiti. And then I'm going to drag this into my project. So let's see, I'm going to go move tool, drag it in. Here it is. Okay. Oh, shoot. Here, let me delete it. This is where you want to hold shift, right? So watch. Okay. So watch, I'm going to drag it in. But before I let go, I'm going to hold shift and it will center it. I want to, ooh, that doesn't look good. Oh, no, it worked. Okay. So this is where holding shift, you want to center it because it perfectly fits the background. I could try to match it, but that would be very difficult. But I got it. Okay, that looks good. So now let's talk about, let's see, we're talking about the basics. So we want to talk about layers. So obviously I put my wall, my graffiti wall on top, so it covers up all the other layers. So whatever is on top in your layers panel is in front. So I want this to be underneath everything. So I'm going to drag my wall layer to be underneath. So there it is, it's underneath. Now I've got my concrete. Let's see, I'm gonna throw away this other concrete. I'm just gonna delete it. And I have two layers. I'm sorry, two other images, right? So I have my brick and I can move it around with my move tool. And then I have my concrete. Now let's talk about making selections. There's a lot of different ways on how to select your layers. And so one way is this. You could actually go to your layer and it's like, I want to select the brick layer. So you go to the layers and you click on the brick and then you move it around with the move tool. That's the hard way. I go to concrete, I click on concrete, I move it around. That's the hard way. There's an easy way. Using your move tool, there's an auto select layer. Now I don't like this, but this is the easiest way. Watch. I'm going to click on auto select, and whatever you click on, it'll select. So you have to use your move tool. You get this auto select layer option when you have your move tool selected. Okay, but why do I not like this? Because you might accidentally move a layer that you don't want to move, like that. It's like, oh no. Now the other teachers will be like this. Dave, you should just lock the wall layer. Okay, so if I lock the wall layer, I don't have to worry about accidentally selecting it. But here's the thing, me personally, I don't lock too many of my layers. I would rather have the flexibility, and if you're careful, you don't have to lock this layer. What you can do is you can do it this way. This is my way. I don't use auto select layer. So I don't use auto select layer. And if I want to select an image, like I want to select this brick, what I do is you hold down Control, and then you just left click. So hold down Control, and then you mouse click or left click on your image, and it will select that layer. So I hold Control, left click, and it'll select that. Holding the Control is like a safety. It's like so when you hold down that safety and you click on it, it'll select it. That way I don't have to worry about accidentally selecting my background. Sometimes I do lock my very, very, very background image, but like if I'm careful, I might be okay. But this is the way I like to, I hold Control and I left click my layers. This is the way I like to do it. And the reason being is because when you have groups, you can select the whole group and move your groups around. When you have auto select layer and you click on a group, it will select one layer within that group. And that can be a pain if you want to select the whole group. So, and I use groups a lot, and you're going to use groups. So I just highly recommend, if you're indifferent and don't care, don't use auto select layer. Use Control, hold down, or Command. If you're on a Mac, it's Command, but Control and click on the layer you want to select. Trust me, it's a good habit, but you can do whatever you want. You know, you're like, nah, Dave, I'm going to use auto select layer. Then go for it. That's fine. A lot of people use it, but well, maybe, I don't know. But you have the freedom to use auto select layer, right? It just might be more difficult for groups. Okay, so we talked about selecting. Zooming, we zoom in and out. You can use the zoom tool. We talked about this last time. Control minus will zoom away. Control plus will zoom in. Okay, now let's talk about groups. So I do want to make a group of these two. Now the background I want to have separate, but these two kind of surfaces, or, you know, I guess I call them surfaces, sure. I want these to be in a group. I want them to be organized and together. So how do I make a group? There's a couple different ways on how to make a group. One way is this. You want to select both layers. So using your, well, you don't have to use the move tool, but you can go to your layers. So like this. Currently my brick layer is selected, but I want to select my brick and my concrete. So if I hold Control, I can click on the other layer and they'll both select. Watch, I'm going to hold Control, I'm going to click concrete. So now they're both selected. When I have both of them selected, both layers selected, I can go to the option for layers. I can go option and I can go new group from layers. And what that means is there's a lot of different options for groups. I got like new group, that just makes a group. But new group from layers will put my selected group, my selected layers into a group. So new group from selected layers is what it should read. So I'm going to do that. New group from layers. I'm going to click on it. There it is. I can name it. I'm going to name it surfaces. You can name it whatever you want. You can name it walls. You can name it bricks or construction. I don't care. But you have to give it a name. So give a name to your group. Now, what's the benefit of a group? Well, if you don't have auto select checked, you can move them together at the same time. So that's kind of nice. That's important when you have a real complex group. Sometimes you have like an object or something made up of many layers, and it's all like there might be 10 layers that make up a group. And then you're like, I want to copy that group. Well, if you don't have auto select layer, you can easily copy that group and make duplicates of those groups. So it's pretty useful, but whatever. Now, how do I know that these are in the same group? Well, what I can do is I go to my group. It's a little folder. So the folder is the group. I click on the arrow and it shows me there's 2 layers that are indented. So the fact that they're indented means that they're in the group. Okay. Now, if I move, I can move it out. Like I'm going to move this concrete layer out of the group. So I'm going to drag it out. I'll drag it down here. Okay. So now the concrete layer is out of the group because it's not indented anymore. Okay, big deal. Now I'm going to move it back into the group. To move a layer into a group, you just drag it right on top of the group. So like I'm holding my left mouse button to drag this layer, and I'm positioning it has like a little hand, and I'm positioning it right on the folder, the group folder. And I'm going to let go, and it will put it in the group. So now it's indented again, it's in the group. All right. So now I'm going to drag these out, and I'll show you a different way to make a group. That's my favorite way to make a group. So I'm going to delete this group. Another way to make a group, this is kind of the longer way. You can just click up. There's a little group button at the bottom of your layers panel. I can just click here. It doesn't have a name. I can name it. I'm just going to name it S for now for surfaces. But nothing's, I just made the group, but nothing's in there. So I need to drag the layers in. So I can just, here's my brick. I'm going to hold my left mouse button. I'm going to drag it on top of the group, let go, it put it in. I'm going to select, hold my left mouse button down on this, drag it, put it right on top of that group, it put it in. So that's another way. That's another way to make a group.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I have a question. So can you also just group it like you would in Illustrator where you can select the 2 and click Control G?
No, because it's, well, no, it's different. It's different. At least to my knowledge, it's different. It's way different. Because in Illustrator, you have all kinds of little vector shapes and lines, and you can select them all. These are individual layers. I mean, let's see. Here, let me undo all this. Let me see if I can do it this way. I'm going to control select this guy. I'm going to hold control shift and select this guy. I mean, I selected them, and then I could probably, let me try control G. So control G, let's see if it's the same option. Oh, okay. So it was the same option, but it didn't, it's very similar, but it didn't let me name it, but I can name it now. So it's similar. So what I had to do, let me undo all that. So what I had to do is I had to select them differently because you can't just drag, like in Illustrator, you can just drag a marquee around all your stuff and select it, right? Here, you just have to select it. So what I did, I held control to select one layer. To add to the selection of my layers, selecting layers, I'm holding control and shift to select another layer. They're both selected. Then control G does work. So control G does work from my selected layers, but then I have to rename it. So yeah, I guess it does work. I've never done it that way, but yeah, that works. But it's a little trickier to select your layers, but yeah, okay, good observation. Me, it's easier just to, I select them from my layer, because sometimes I'll just click them. I'll click them in my layers, and then I just go new group from, that's just easier for me, but that's good. Okay. You want to make sure you have some groups in your assignment. So like you want to group similar things. Okay, so that's groups. What are some basic things we need to talk about real quick? I think that's it. Let's see. Let me just talk about rotation real quick. If I want to rotate a layer or an image, you can use show transform controls, And then my layer selected, you go to the corner, this is kind of like Illustrator, like if you have an object selected, only this is selecting the image on that layer, right? And I can just rotate it. But when you're done rotating, you have to apply it. So either press enter or you press on this check mark. So I usually just press enter. But if you click on, there'll be a little check mark up here. It's the same thing. If you want to undo, it's Control Z. So to rotate, you select it, rotate, press check mark, or enter. Now, let's talk about transformations. There's a couple different ways on how to do transformations. Show transform controls is the easiest. So you probably want to use show transform controls, and that is available to you when you have the move tool selected. But I don't like to see the bounding box. Personally, it just kind of bugs me. But you can always use show transform controls. It's okay, but I don't like it, so I'm going to uncheck it. This is just a different way. Let's say I want to transform this concrete here. There's a shortcut it's Control T. Control T is free transform. So what I'm going to do it, Control T, temporarily gives me that bounding box to transform. And then when I press enter, it'll disappear. So watch, I'm going to press enter. So now the bounding box is gone. So I've gotten into the habit of using Control T to transform a layer, but show transform controls is totally fine. And now let me show you the slowest way to do a transformation. You can actually go to the edit menu. So you can go edit, here, you go edit, transform, and then you get a lot of different options. So like if I click rotate, it'll only let me rotate. If I do scale, it will only change the size. And then there's some different ones like warp. Now, the nice thing about this though, is that I can flip it. So like under edit transform, you can do a flip, and a flip is like a mirror image. So if I do flip horizontal, here, I'm going to show you first. I'm going to make a copy. So here it is. To make a copy of a layer, you can use your move tool. You can hold the Alt key, and then you can hold your left mouse button down and drag a copy. Or you could just select a layer and duplicate it. You can go to options for layer, and go duplicate. So you can duplicate a layer, but it's right on top, so I have to move it away. But my favorite way to make a copy of a layer, especially if it's a small object, I just hold the Alt key and I hold my left mouse button and drag. So, but anyways, I'm gonna delete that. Okay, here we go. So I've got two of them here. Now I want to flip one of them so it's going the other way. So I go edit, transform, flip horizontally will give it a mirror image. So I'm going to go flip. So there it is. So that's super useful in edit transform. But normally, if I want to transform an object, me personally, I do Control T. Control T is free transform. You can make it bigger. You can do all the transformations. You can rotate it. You can scale it, and then you can also distort it. If you hold Control and pull from a corner, you can distort. But we don't need to distort our images for this homework. But just be aware, Control can distort. And then when I'm done with all my transformations, I press enter, or I click on the check mark. I always press enter, and there it is. So there it is. So that's transformation, and that's duplication. We do need to duplicate we're gonna have little nails. So we do need to duplicate those nails. And remember, you can just hold the Alt key and drag your nail to make a copy, or you can just duplicate the nail layer. It's up to you, whatever is easier for you. Okay, so let's see, did I talk about all the basics? Let me check here. Smart objects, we talked about that. And I'll talk about this again when we go to our homework. Let's see, image resolution needs to be 300, yeah. Make sure you name all your layers. Make sure every layer is a smart object, right? And then here's another little bit of forbidden knowledge. And let me get a different, do I have a different image? Here, the consumer. Oh, I didn't do the consumer. Oh, let's talk about cropping her. She needs to be cropped. So first, so technically I could crop her first, because like I don't need all of this, I don't need all of this sky, right? So let's see. It's just my way to make the resolution correct first. So, but I think technically you could crop her first, but I'm going to change the resolution. So I'm going to go image, image size. Remember, it's always under image size. I'm going to uncheck resample. And I'm going to change, I'm going to make sure it's pixels per inch. It is. A couple images aren't pixels per inch. You have to change it. Like they're centimeters per inch. Pixels per inch is what I want. And I'm going to change this to be 300 first. Because that's how I'm thinking. Okay. Now I'm ready to crop. So let's see, I can do this. So I basically, I don't want to see all this cloud. So I'm just going to kind of move it in. So it's kind of more like a traditional, it's like a portrait now. So I'm going to press enter. And then let's see, my handout says, what size does she have to be? She has to be 3 inches tall. So now I'm going to make this image 3 inches tall. So I'm going to go image size, image size. When you change the height and the width, you want to resample because you don't want to change. Watch, I'll show you what happens if I don't do this. If I try to say I want the height to be 3, but watch, the resolution is going to get all messed up. It's like, whoa, what's happening? It got all weird. So I'm going to undo. Remember how I said you can undo a mistake right away in your menu? So I'm going to do Control Z to undo that. I forgot to check resample. Oh, look how weird. It didn't go back to. Okay, whatever. Then I'm going to hit resample. Now I can change the size. So the height needs to be 3. So there it is. Now I hit OK. And so that's technically what you're supposed to do for the assignment. And then I can just drag this into my project. So I'm going to drag it in. I'm just going to let go. I'm just going to put it here. So there she is. But, oh, shoot, wrong one, close. Let me give you some forbidden information. I just want you to be aware. But don't do it this way. I want you to know, I want you to be exposed to the truth, but I want you to follow the handout. The handout, the assignment wants to teach you a certain way, and it's good. It's kind of like practice, and you're kind of going to get the hang of it. But technically, you're like, Dave, what would you do? Let me show you. I wouldn't want to delete those clouds because I want the flexibility of having those clouds, but I still want it to have the cropped look. So remember, don't do this for your homework. Let's see. So let me open that image real quick. You're like, oh my gosh, Dave, this is getting complicated. Why are you doing this to me? It's because I want you to have the best knowledge possible. So watch. First, I would definitely change the image size. I want the resolution to be 300. Okay, so I'm going to hit. So that's it. I'm going to hit OK. Now, this is a very large image. Then I'm going to make it a smart object. So I'm going to right click. Oh, let's see. Oh, yeah, right click, smart object. Oh, here it is. Duh, missed it. Then I would name it. You know, I would name it whatever, C for consumer. But you would probably type the word. Now, this image is way too big. But remember, as a smart object, now remember, this is just for your future, for knowledge. But I want this image to be as big as it can be as a smart object. I have flexibility. Now watch, I'm going to drag it into my project. It's going to be humongous. It's going to be way too big. Oh, I screwed up here. Darn it. Well, I accidentally pulled it away. I can still drag it in. So I can just drag it in. I can drag, but here's my, it's a separate window. And I have, anyways, I got to drag it in. So watch, I'm going to drag it in. Okay. Select the layer. I'm going to drag it in. Okay. So see how big it is? And you're like, Dave, that's way too big. I'm going to close this one. Normally, if your image is too big, this is good because I have flexibility. I can shrink it down, no problem. But if I want to make it bigger again to be up to the size, I have the flexibility. I can do that. Now remember, it's a smart object. So even though I'm going to make it really small, it always remembers this size, which is good. Now watch, I have to totally zoom out. Watch, I'm going to zoom out to change the size of this. Then I'm going to use, I can do show transform controls. Look how big it is. The image is so big, it is beyond my artboard. Like, so this is my artboard, this is my document, but this image of the consumer is so big, it's like way beyond that. But again, remember, this is good. I can make it small for now. So watch, I'm gonna make it small. Oh, okay, here it goes. It's working. It was all slow, it was all getting tired. Okay, watch this. Okay, so there it is. This is my new one. So it's about the size I want. And now you're thinking like, okay, Dave, but now you got to get rid of the clouds. That's true. Now on the clouds on this one, I cropped them out. So they're gone permanently. Although I must say there is an option on the crop where you can uncheck delete cropped pixels. So that may protect. I haven't used it. I'll use it later. But I haven't used that. That may preserve the cropped image like a layer mask. But what I'm going to do is, instead of just cropping, I'm just going to use a layer mask. Now, don't worry, you don't need to remember a layer mask for this project, but some of you might remember it from the Adobe class, the first, and we'll talk about layer masks next week. But I'm going to use a rectangular marquee, and I'm going to kind of use this to not really crop it, but to show what I want to see. So when you make a mask, it only reveals what is inside the selection. So this will be temporarily hidden. So then I'm going to go to my layer. So I make sure the layer is corrected. I mean, selected, not corrected. So the layer is selected. Then I have my selection. Then I'm going to click on the layer mask button, which is the box with the circle. I'm going to click on that. Now, what it did was it hid the extra clouds, but the clouds are still there. So why is this the best? Because I can get those clouds. If my art director comes in, my art director might say, I want to see some more clouds. Well, I can paint in the mask white to show those clouds again, right? I'm going to undo it. We'll learn about that next week. Also, I saved before I made it a smart object, this image was as big as possible. I saved it as a smart object, then I shrunk it down so that I have maximum options in the future. Like I can make it big again. Anyways, that's complicated. If that makes sense to you, keep that for the future. But for this project, don't worry about it. For this project, you are going to make the image small first. You're going to make it small. You're going to save it as a smart object, then bring it over. It's not as optimal, but it's okay. It's practice, right? But this is what I would normally do. If this doesn't make sense, what I just did, don't worry about it. I want to expose you to that information. And then maybe by the end of the quarter, you'll be like, oh yeah, I kind of understand that. And you can use that in the future. Both results are the same. Both results are the same. But one of them gives me options. I can make it bigger. I can get the clouds back. If you don't have a finicky art director, it may not even matter. But usually your art director will change things. They'll be like, I want the clouds again. I want it bigger. I want it smaller. And so the more flexibility you have, the better. And that's why I showed it to you. Okay. So you have the truth, but now you can just kind of forget about it. Okay, how's that sound? And you can always watch this video again if you want to know that. Okay, so I think I talked about all the basics. Let's see, layers, resolution. Okay, let me show you one more thing. I want to put it, nah, you know what? I'm going to show you when we go to the homework assignment. But what's going to happen is you're going to work at 300 pixels per inch. You're going to work there. Then when you're all finished, you're going to save a copy of your homework, save a copy at a lower resolution, 150, and you will, that's the lower resolution version. That's what you'll submit to Canvas. Why? Because Photoshop files are really large, and sometimes Canvas has a hard time uploading a very large Photoshop file. But you always want to save your original 300 ppi resolution file. That's your work file. Then you save a copy 150 pixels per inch, and then we'll change it to be an Adobe Photoshop PDF. But we'll talk about that soon. Okay, finally, I think that's it. So that's it for the basics. So I'm going to stop recording, and then we will see if stop recording.